For over 40 minutes, a man has been commanding the craps table, rolling dice with an almost supernatural ability to avoid hitting a 7. With every throw, he confidently predicts the outcome, calling out numbers with eerie accuracy. The crowd surrounding him, now swelling in size, is whooping and cheering louder with each successful roll. But while the onlookers are mesmerized, the casino staff are anything but impressed. The pit boss watches with mounting frustration, his anger barely concealed. He orders a stickman change, a subtle signal to disrupt the momentum. Yet, with a crowd this large and excited, there's little they can do without raising suspicion. The idea that one person could take on the mighty Las Vegas casinos and beat them at their own game is as thrilling as it is dangerous. This man, cool and composed, rolls a 6. He's done it again. The question now hanging in the air is, who is he? And how has he managed to perfect a craps strategy that consistently beats the odds night after night? To understand the answer, we need to go back to 1997. In 1997, Dominic Larigio was living in New York, working as a software developer. By day, he ran a small tech firm, but his true passion lay far away from the computer screen. Dominic was an expert gambler, specializing in blackjack. Like many card counters, Dominic had honed his skills to exploit the game, gaining a slight but significant edge over the house. However, in the late 90s, casinos across Las Vegas and Atlantic City had begun using multiple decks to make counting cards far more difficult. Frequent shuffling, too, was added to disrupt counters. The game, once exhilarating, was losing its appeal for Dominic. To make matters worse, casino staff had grown sharper in identifying card counters. If they suspected anyone of counting cards, they wouldn't hesitate to escort them off the premises. Dominic, finding himself more restricted by the day, faced a dilemma. Should he walk away from gambling entirely or find a new advantage in a different game? One day, while wandering the casino floors, trying to rekindle his enthusiasm, Dominic noticed a group of young women huddled around the craps table. They were on a hot streak, winning repeatedly and attracting a growing crowd of spectators. Every time they scored a win, their cheers echoed across the casino floor, drawing even more onlookers. Craps had never caught Dominic's interest before. To him, it seemed like a game of pure luck, a place where the odds were always stacked against the players. But as he watched the women play, something clicked in his mind. He overheard one of them talking about her lucky throw, and he began to consider the mechanics of the game in a way he never had before. Unlike blackjack, craps allowed players to physically control the dice. In theory, the outcome of each roll could be influenced, even if just slightly. It was a revelation. Could craps be vulnerable to advantage play just like blackjack? Was there a way to consistently control the dice and swing the odds in the player's favor? Dominic's mind raced with possibilities. He realized that, unlike other games of pure chance, the dice rolls in craps could be manipulated with enough practice and technique. The question now was how to turn this into a workable strategy. Craps is arguably the most electrifying game in any casino. The atmosphere around a craps table is unmatched, with players united by a shared goal, keeping the hot streak alive. The game begins with a come-out roll, where the shooter rolls the dice for the first time. If the dice show a 7 or 11, it's an automatic win. However, if the shooter rolls a 2, 3, or 12, the game ends in a loss for most bets. If the shooter rolls any other number, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10, that number becomes the point. The objective from there is for the shooter to roll the point number again before rolling a 7. If they roll a 7 before repeating the point, the round ends, and most players at the table lose. Dominic quickly grasped that the key to beating craps wasn't about controlling every roll perfectly. It was about manipulating the average outcome, specifically to avoid rolling 7s. With the right technique, he believed he could shift the odds in his favor, just as he had done with card counting and blackjack. The following day, Dominic scoured local bookstores, eager to find any material on dice control and craps strategies. He knew that this wasn't going to be easy. Mastering the dice would take dedication, practice, and an understanding of the game that most players never bothered to learn. But the potential rewards were enormous. His friends thought he was chasing a pipe dream. After all, conventional wisdom said that games like craps, roulette, and the lottery were purely chance-based. Many believed the dice would always fall randomly, that no one could control how they landed. But Dominic wasn't discouraged. He knew that there were laws of physics and nature at play, and if he could harness them, he could tilt the odds ever so slightly in his favor. That's when he stumbled upon a name that would change everything: Chris Palicki. Chris Palicki was an innovator in the world of gambling, having spent 3 years perfecting a method to control dice rolls. His technique wasn't just theoretical, it was proven, and Chris had even begun teaching it to others. For Dominic, this was the breakthrough he had been searching for. If Chris's method worked, it could give him the advantage he needed to succeed. Without hesitation, Dominic invested $595, equivalent to $1,100 in today's money, in a 2-day intensive training course with Chris. The course was designed to teach players how to control the release of the dice, and thus influence the outcome of their rolls. Chris's method was simple in concept, but difficult to master. It involved controlling 3 key variables to reduce the randomness of the dice and increase the probability of rolling favorable numbers. The biggest challenge? There were 6 different ways to roll a 7, the one number every craps player dreads. The rules of the game also required that the dice bounce off the table and hit the back wall before coming to a stop, making control even more difficult. But Chris had a solution. His method emphasized the grip, angle, and force of the throw, aiming to minimize the dice's momentum and, in turn, their movement after hitting the back wall. Chris taught Dominic to throw the dice at a 45-degree angle, allowing them to travel the greatest distance with the least amount of force. The goal was to reduce their energy upon impact, giving the thrower more control over how they landed. By mastering this technique, Dominic could influence the dice's outcome while still adhering to the casino's rules. Dominic was convinced the technique worked, but now he needed to put it to the test in a real casino. After weeks of practice, he joined Chris and a small group of professional craps players known as Rosebud. Together, they headed to Atlantic City for Dominic's first serious test at a craps table. As Dominic approached the table, the gravity of the situation hit him. Throwing dice in the comfort of his own home was one thing, but doing it under the intense surveillance of a casino was a completely different challenge. The pressure of betting real money only added to the tension. The first half hour was disastrous. Dominic struggled to find his rhythm, and doubts began to creep in. But the other members of Rosebud reassured him. This was normal for a first-timer. They knew from experience that it took time to adjust to the casino environment. After about an hour, things started to turn around. Dominic's throws became more consistent, his grip more confident. The crowd around the table began to cheer, and his confidence grew with each roll. But there was a problem. Dominic wanted to increase his bets. He knew his skills were improving, and he was eager to capitalize on his success. However, the Rosebud team had strict rules about keeping stakes low to avoid attracting attention. As Dominic's confidence grew, so did his frustration. He was putting in the work, winning the most, and contributing more to the team's bankroll than anyone else. Yet, he was bound by the team's rules, which limited his potential for bigger profits. To Dominic, the thrill of gambling wasn't just about winning, it was about winning big. He wasn't satisfied with modest returns. He wanted to take risks when he knew he had the advantage. Do you like this story so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's go back to the story. During one of Rosebud's training sessions, Chris introduced Dominic to Frank Skoblet, a well-known author and authority on casino games. The two hit it off immediately, and Frank was amazed by Dominic's skill at the craps table. Frank quietly asked Dominic how much he had made with his dice control technique. Dominic admitted that, due to the team's conservative betting limits, he hadn't made as much as he could have. This struck a nerve. Dominic knew he was being held back, and Frank saw an opportunity. A few months later, Frank approached Dominic with a proposition. He suggested forming a new craps team, one where Dominic could play without constraints, where he could bet as much as he wanted and embrace his flamboyant personality. Dominic, frustrated by the limitations of Rosebud, agreed. Together, they formed a new team, the Golden Touch. With Frank by his side, Dominic was free to unleash his full potential. The pair traveled to Las Vegas, ready to take on the casinos with $500 bets per roll. Dominic's confidence soared, and his new team quickly became a force to be reckoned with. However, their success didn't go unnoticed. Casino staff began to pay close attention to Dominic's technique, and the house started playing dirty, attempting to throw him off his game. But Dominic and Frank weren't deterred. They were winning big, $25,000 in a single night, the equivalent of $50,000 in today's money. As the pair moved from casino to casino, their reputation grew. Soon, they were betting $7,000 per roll and rolling 20, 30, even 40 times without hitting a 7. One night, as Dominic was in the midst of another hot streak, a pit boss lurched over the table, watching his every move. The tension was thick in the air. Dominic knew he was pushing the limits, but he was in the zone. His next point was 10, and in a bold move, he placed a $100 bet on a hard 10, a one-roll bet where he had to roll 2 5s. With the crowd watching, heart pounding, Dominic set the dice, adjusted his grip, and threw. The dice hit the felt with a satisfying thump. It was a hard 10. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Dominic had sent a clear message to the casino. He was here to win, and there was nothing they could do to stop him. By the end of the night, Dominic had banked $27,000 in just an hour of play, an impressive feat that marked the height of his gambling career. Today, Dominic Lorigio is still remembered as one of the greatest dice controllers in the history of craps. Though many casinos have since banned him from their floors, his legacy as the man who beat the house remains strong. Do you think it's cheating when you practice throwing dice? Please let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.